Lolita's Corner. Listen, I'm always glad to come join you guys on tonight. It's always a pleasure to meet you on Thursdays to say, hey, what's up? How you doing? What's going on in the community? How are you? Listen, somebody asked me, Dr. Cleveland, what you bringing on tonight's show? What you bringing next week? So listen, tonight's show, we're going to talk about cannabis. Yes, I said cannabis. You can say it however you want to say it. Marijuana, weed, marijuana, however you want to say it. But tonight's show, we're talking about cannabis with my good
Yes,
girlfriend, Tracy Quinn. I'm glad to
yes.
see you on the show. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Yes, how you been? You looking good, girl.
Girl, thank you. Not as good as you, honey, with that green matching honey color coordinated with the glasses,
Listen,
the lips, the honey, the whole flow. You hear me with the background in
listen,
the
I
background.
have to keep up. Listen, you
Okay.
ladies set the standard for me, right? You all definitely set the standard. I am so glad that you all have joined us on tonight. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to put them in the chat. We will try to answer any questions that you have. So listen, Tracy, this world
Yes.
of cannabis, right?
Yes.
Everybody is talking about cannabis. Cannabis, this CBD, THC, edibles, smokables, individual roll-ups, get a book, purples, Fridays, right? They just then they got all these
It,
old
baby.
crazy names. But one of the things that caught my eyes, which is what you and I have talked about a few times, and we really talked about the impact that cannabis is having on the medical industry.
Yes.
I know a lot of people that are using it for medical purposes. Listen, tell us what you know about this whole medical and cannabis. What's
Yeah.
up with that?
Okay. So again, my name is Tracy Quinn. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a certified cannabis nurse instructor as well as an educator. And how I got started in the industry was working. I was a director of nursing for a home health agency, and we were taking care of two twins that were 5 years old. We got them on the case when they were 2 months old, and at their second set of immunizations, they developed seizures, tonic-clonic seizures. I mean, we've had them for 5 years. Helmets, had nursing 24 hours a day. And one of the nurses called me and said, Miss Quinn, we need to start them. We need to contact Child Protective Services because the mother wants to put them on cannabis oil. So I said, well, I'm a mother first. I'm a nurse second. I said, we've had these babies for 5 years. They've been having seizures every 15 minutes. They've been on 12 different medications. I said, if anything, I will take you off the case, put another nurse on the case. So we started them on, the doctor wrote a recommendation for, and this was in California, for the cannabis oil and a high ketogenic diet, which is a high fatty diet. And because we have actual cannabinoid receptors in our bodies, everybody does. Um, what happens is that high fatty diet, as well as the cannabis oil, binds to the neuromuscular cells. So immediately, one of the babies, her seizures stopped immediately. Now, mind you, they had been on 12 different medications, walking around like little zombies in fifth, in kindergarten.
Wow.
Second twin stopped, her seizure stopped at about 3 months later. So about 6 months total, we discharged them from the agency, wiped out their seizures. And I'm like, well, dang, well, what is this? Like, what's so bad about it? And so I started doing my research. I started studying. I took a class with Oaksterdam University out in Oakland, California, because the Emerald Triangle, Northern California, is the big hub of where they do all the growing in the mountains up in Northern California. So I started developing a relationship with the farmers out there, girl, and they would give me these big giant contractor bags full of weed. I didn't know what I was doing,
Doing right,
but
right.
I was taking it to the dispensaries in California. And so what I found was it was literally shrinking tumors. It was stopping seizures. So I ended up opening up a dispensary and started, kind of manufacturing my own products and testing it out on patients. And I had patients literally coming back saying that their tumors were shrinking, their cancer tumors were shrinking. We had worked with a little girl named Sophie Ryan, who had she developed leukemia when she was 2 years old, and her mother started her immediately on cannabis oils, and she was the only child who still they didn't she didn't lose her hair, didn't develop alopecia. She still had a healthy appetite, real rosy cheeks. I mean, so she was still basically healthy compared to the other infants who had leukemia and different cancers.
So it's
Um,
really a benefit to some medical things. So as a parent
yes.
who is looking, because I noticed you mentioned cannibal oils, and these are great testimonies. And all I have to say is Black Girl Rocks. Congratulations for the accomplishments that you have made, right?
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So for our viewers, though, they're dying to know some just tidbits, right?
Yes.
So you mentioned that they use the cannabis oil. So cannabis is coming in multiple forms.
Yes. So you have multiple forms, and the whole reason as a nurse, and that's why if any of you are in the medical field or in or any nurses, I strongly recommend coming in because they need a lot more education out there. We teach on the routes of consumption as well as the dosage, being able to dose. So, me as a nurse, I'm not going to say, okay, if you have high blood pressure, to go smoke a blunt, Lolita. But why? Because when you're smoking, that smoke takes up your oxygen out of your red blood cells, the hemoglobin out of the red blood cells. So I would suggest taking either an edible, a small piece of edible, or oil. But if you have liver problems, then guess what? I'm not going to suggest you take an edible. Why? Because your liver is not going to be able to metabolize and break down, what's in the edible. So it'll develop a kind of like a toxic, and that's where you'll be tweaking and going crazy. So our job is to educate on different types of different routes of consumption. You have from anywhere from suppositories, you have your oils, you have your edibles, you have bongs, you have your blunts, you have pre-rolls, you have mist, where just like asthma, you can do a mist. So now there's so many different vape pens.
Wow.
You have
Wow.
so many different routes and ways, dabbing, that you can actually safely consume.
You said something very powerful. The first thing you said, educate. So a lot of times people are afraid to address anything new, especially when you get to talk about cannabis, because our mindset and culture has been you smoking those crazy trees, you smoking weed, it is gonna cause potency.
Hmm.
You're gonna go crazy, it's gonna have you tweaking, it's gonna become addictive.
Hmm.
That has been the culture. So
Okay.
now we're exploring a world of where cannabis is legal in some places, right?
Hmm.
Um,
We're
then you
18 states right now. Cannabis. Okay, so cannabis. So you have marijuana, you have cannabis. So which
have,
is where your CBD, your hemp, your cannabis is derived from a hemp plant. But then you have a sister or a cousin plant, which is your marijuana. So your THC, anything over 3%, your 30% ratio is considered marijuana. Anything under that 0.3% is considered CBD. So now you have THC versus CBD, and this is where the world is right now going crazy at, because CBD is legal nation worldwide. So you can do anything dealing with CBD worldwide. THC is where what's federally regulated, and they consider it a controlled substance. Next week, actually, I think it's next week.
yes, next week.
There, yeah, the federal legislation is taking it to the boards of legislation in order to hopefully decriminalize and also to remove it from the controlled substance list. One thing I can say about THC is, you have so many different strains of marijuana. So you have an indica, which is your what people call it in the couch. We that's what we call in the couch, where you be stuck looking crazy, can't do
They
nothing.
just high
That's the
doing too
rap,
much.
the rapper's weed. And then you have your sativas. Those are the ones where you can still function, can still, do things. And then you have your hybrids, which are, a mixture between, your sativa and your indica put together. When you're functioning, your sativas give you a lot more energy. They keep you alert. They're basal constrictors, meaning you have a lot more energy. And what sativas You would mostly with patients with cancer that are having problems eating and poor appetites. You would give them a sativa. Why? Because they're gonna get the munchies.
That's
So
right.
you want them to
That's
have
right.
that, or someone who's been depressed, and just in horrible moods. You would want them to have a sativa or a mixture blend of a hybrid sativa dominant hybrid. The people that also would and also with cancer, indica, your heavy indicas, your very strong indicas, they work well with pain, and also decreasing and shrinking those cancer cells.
Right.
So you want to know the difference between them, and also why you're taking it. Because at the end of the day, anybody smoking, anybody who's consuming weed, they're doing it for a reason, whether they just want to chill and relax, or whether they want to giggle, you know what I'm saying, or whether they just
Right.
want to just digress from the day, honey. We've been in COVID. Everybody needs to have some, okay?
Right. So
You need.
listen, you said something real powerful, and I think about
Hmm.
a loved one that I had, and I remember they were going through cancer and chemo,
Yes.
and we became educated on it, and that it would be able to help. And you right, it helped with the increase of appetite, and I remember helping them learn that you have to become educated on it because a lot of times we're not educated on
Yeah.
it, and they were afraid to try it. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember us saying that our secret was I would try it with her because I just wanted
Oh.
her pain
Oh.
to stop, right?
Yes.
And our laughing joke was that it didn't do anything to me. I told her it was probably because in my younger day I was smoking so much weed, child, my tolerance was different. So that was,
Why she
that
would
was
have
that
stuck
was
on the
our
couch.
joke. But
Yes.
I watched it help her,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I have learned that it does help with people who suffer from epilepsy. What
Mm-hmm.
does it do? Give me a quick. What can it do to help with people with epilepsy?
It relaxes the neuromuscular cells in the brain. So what happens is the THC binds to the ganglion, and it relaxes the smooth muscles. So when you have epilepsy or seizures, you have a lot of movement, activity, and what it does is kind of just it relaxes those cells, those neuromuscular cells, to where they want to when they want to go crazy, it can. It's because it's nice and relaxed, and no matter how much it tries, the THC binds it, you see, and
Okay.
it relaxes those cells, which is why those children were able to get off of
Right.
those anti-seizure medications. They were on 12 different medications, and once
So
she started it. Mm-hmm.
I'm so intrigued, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because I know people that suffer from epilepsy, right?
Yes.
So they would need to get a consult to sort of talk about and talk through some things
Mm-hmm.
before they actually begin to start. Because should they just get off their medicine right away? I know you're not a medical doctor, you are a nurse, but you are
Mm-hmm.
versed
Yes.
in cannabis. And I think about somebody I know that's an adult
Mm-hmm.
that suffers from epilepsy.
Okay.
And when they have one, sometimes it's a grand mal,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, if they have a grand mal, should they go smoke weed or should they go
Mhm.
have an edible?
Right. Well, see, the edible. Now, remind you, an edible is not going to kick. Girl, so when it comes to those edibles, sometimes they won't even kick in for like 2 hours. So that's why people be eating it, because they so sometimes they can be so tasty, and 10 minutes they like, oh, it ain't working. Let me get a little more. Okay,
And then
it ain't
in
working. Let me go
45
get
minutes
some
to
more.
an hour, they high as a kite.
High as a kite, girl. Then giraffe cootie coo. So with edibles, you have to be careful, because again, it's not going to even break down for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours. So when you consume an edible, don't even expect for it to take effect for another 2 hours, because then after you eat it and 30 minutes later, you're like, oh, it ain't doing nothing. Then you go driving a car, getting ready to go to your meeting or go to a store or go whatever, and then all of a sudden you're driving like, what's going on? The
Right,
world is spinning. Now all of a sudden you're driving 3 miles an hour, thinking the FBI, everybody coming to chase you, like the monkeys is
right.
flying out of everywhere from the whiz. It's because you've consumed a little bit too much.
Mhm.
So when it comes to edible, so you want to make sure that when you're taking the edible, start. We always say start low, dose low. Start slow, dose low. meaning take a little, you take a small little piece. You're not going to take 100 milligrams of morphine. If not, you'd be dead, even though weed doesn't kill. But you're not
Right.
going to take 100 milligrams of morphine. You're going to take a milligram. If that milligram don't work, okay, let's increase the dose. So
Right.
same thing with the cookie or a brownie. You're going to take a small 5 milligram, little piece, and wait a couple of hours. And so this is what I tell patients: wait a couple of hours, see how it affects you,
Okay.
stay on that. Just like you would take, if you had surgery and they prescribed you Norco or Vicodin, and you're taking it every 4 to 6 hours for pain. Same thing. Do the same thing with your marijuana or your CBD. Take it every 4 to 6 hours as needed for whatever your diagnosis is, for whatever your pain.
Right. So for the bringing back to the epilepsy, so after you have that, because we were talking about should you have an edible or should you smoke it after or do they have pens or something
So
for
they
the
can do, they can definitely do a vape. Again, with the children, we did oils. They did oils in their food. So starting them with anybody with epilepsy, I would highly recommend you starting on a ketogenic diet. A high ketogenic diet is are your fatty, your good fats, like your virgin coconut oils, your any high lipids, olive oil, butter, those good fats. Because what's going to happen is those good fats will bind with the THC or the CBD, the cannabinoid, and they're going to help to relax those. So, but even so, prior to a seizure, I would recommend them at least doing the CBD oil and a ketogenic diet now, to
prior to a
preventably.
seizure.
However, if they
I
do
would
have a
recommend them
seizure,
at least doing
or in the midst of a seizure, if someone is around, putting some drops in there under their tongue, um, after the seizure, doing a vape. But at the when after the seizure, their body is so in so much pain. They really, they're kind of spacey, so they really afterwards is really not effective. You want to hit it before they even, have a seizure.
right.
So again, have them look up a ketogenic diet, and also if they're prohibited from marijuana for any reason, then they definitely can at least start with a full spectrum CBD or a broad spectrum CBD. I would recommend.
Okay. Right. Okay, that's good. So listen, Tracy, you helping some people out, right?
Hmm.
Listen, do it help them people with diabetes?
It does help. It does help with diabetes, but with diabetes, you also have to, because what happens with diabetes, your pancreas is not, excreting the proper insulin to for breaking down the sugar. So your sugar is steady, um, elevated. So with that, you can definitely use it, but you also have to eat in moderation, and stay away from your sugars. So
Stay away
with
from your sugars.
diabetes,
You
it's,
gotta stay away from your
yes,
sugar.
yeah, you have to eat it. It's everything is in moderation. So it can definitely help with neuropathy. With a lot of diabetic patients end up with neuropathy because the poor circulation in the lower extremities. So I definitely would recommend just making sure you're counting counting the sugar, your carbs, and being mindful of what what you're intaking, because cannabis is not a cure all for everything. However,
That's
it
right.
does help with a lot of things. Yeah,
That's true.
it helps with a
So
lot of
so let me ask you this. You are Black Girl Magic, right? You
things.
rocking. You have a construction and development group. You have 1111. Tell me briefly, real quick, what is 1111 and what is Pink Hat's construction and development group?
So I lived in California, in Los Angeles, California. I had a dispensary out there. Worked with Rick Ross, Nipsey Hussle, all of the big great, So I had some fun. So I had 1111 Divine Medicinal Therapy, which was more of the educational part of cannabis. We did everything, taught everything cannabis. Then I had Divas and Dank, which was our entertainment company. So if anyone had wanted a party, we did everything edible, from the appetizers, honey, all the way to the full course meal and desserts. Um, so that's what we did out there in California. Now here in the state of Illinois, 1111 DMT is still the educational portion, but what we do, we provide medical recommendation cards to those who are interested, who have diagnoses, who are interested in and not only obtaining their medical recommendation, their medical marijuana card, but also learning how to grow. And where we teach our patients, they'll come with the 5 plant allowance, and so we teach them how to. I'm sorry about the door. Yeah,
No,
I
I
gave
don't hear
you one.
nothing, honey. I'm being educated.
Okay, so we teach them, teach them how to grow.
Right,
Um, Teach them how to grow the nutrients they need. And then what my job and my goal is to partner them with a certain strain according to their diagnosis. Works well with PTSD, anxiety, insomnia, nausea, migraines. I mean, you have a list, the list goes on and on and on
right,
and on and on. So no matter what their diagnosis is, no one can get turned down, because guess what? Your pain, your diagnosis, whatever you're suffering with is subjective. Who am
right,
I, or who is the doctor to say that you're not suffering with any of those things? So we make sure that everybody is approved when they apply for their medical
right.
recommendation cards.
Okay.
Uh,
And what is
Now,
Pink Hats up to?
Pink Cats. So we do residential and commercial remodeling. Pink Cats construction came about. Unfortunately, I did get detained for 2 years, sent to prison for marijuana. And while I was in there, while I was locked up, God said, Tracy, I don't have you here on punishment. I have you here on purpose, because I want you out here redeveloping these communities. He said, it's not about the marijuana. He said, because Genesis 1:29 says, I gave you authority over every green plant that produces seed. He said, so it's not about that. He said, I'm changing the trajectory of your path. He said, number one, I want you to see the injustice of the justice system. Number two, it's about
Mhm.
not just about you and your 4 kids, your 4 daughters. He said, it's about all of my children. So I want you out here shifting, changing the mindsets of these women. He said, and then once I let you out, once I release you, because you're getting ready to get out. He said, once I release you, he said, I want you developing luxurious transitional homes for these women coming out of prison, and also the youth exiting foster care at the age of 18 to 21.
Because they
Um,
have nowhere to go.
no resources. I
Nowhere
had
to
an
go.
eight
Come
bedroom,
on.
honey, with a jacuzzi, a pool. I was living beautifully, taking care of my girls. When I got released from prison, I got released with a little garbage bag and a small check, and lost every single thing. Um, and didn't know that the youth exiting foster care, they are exiting the state system with
Yes.
the same thing, with a $2,500 check and a garbage
And
bag
nowhere to
and
go.
no resources. And so they expect these youth exiting out the system to automatically know how to function and be successful in this world. And a lot of them end up, and I didn't know until I went to prison, that these young girls that are, and men and boys that are exiting out, they end up homeless, they end up on drugs, sex trafficked, murdered, or back in prison. So it's set up in a way that it's a revolving door.
It's a revolving
It's a
door.
revolving door. The foster care system is set up to where they're putting these children in foster care homes for them to fail. Why? Because the government gets double the money if they put them in a
Don't get me
place that
started.
fails.
Don't get me started. Don't get
So
me started
I
on the system because I worked for them and left them. Like, don't get me started. But they
I
don't
had no
realize
clue.
they
God,
need, come on, and he gonna do it because we
he is
need
not, and
those.
he is not pleased. So that's why
Yeah.
he allowed me, and I don't take it for granted, nor do I regret a day of it, because it was the worst, but yet the best 2 years of my life. Why? Because I was able to hear clearly from him, from what thus said the Lord. And not only that, but to make, he did such amazing things, and I got delivered. I thought, hey, I was a registered nurse, honey, doing my thing, making more money than I
Come
have
on.
ever made in
You
my
know how
entire
we
life.
do. And then he hit us like, sit down and let me get your attention so you can do my will and my purpose and my destiny.
Period. Because
But
if I
you're
would
not
have,
gonna get me started today.
honey, if I would have 9 out of 10, because if somebody would have hollered at me and they'd been in prison, I probably would have been like, so he knows how to humble you. He will
Mhm.
sit you down. And when God sits you down, he said, when I sit you down, he said, prison is Babylon, a modern day Babylon. It's only, he said, I do it because I love you. I only discipline those that I love. And if you're in there, then I want you to be able to hear from me. He said, then once you hear and surrender, I will open up the doors. So I get out March 20th. I got out March 6th of 2020. March 12th is the pandemic, and he shuts the world down. I'm like, come on, guy, you come on, you got jokes. I've been in here for 2 years, and now you want to set the world down? Like, what? Really? Come, really?
You couldn't get in no trouble.
What? So, but it was, and now you see so many people have tapped into their gifts on the inside,
Yeah.
and now have their businesses because he wanted them to hear from him,
Right.
and what path and what's the direction in life. So he set the world down because there's a ship going. A
That's
ship
it.
has taken
That's
place,
it.
and it's for you to mind your own business.
Business. And you
Mind
minding
your own
yours
business.
great with Pink Hats Construction, doing great things. Listen, I believe that those buildings and houses are coming. Listen, I just decree and declare from the north, east, south, and west,
Yeah.
honey, people gonna sow those buildings for you to do the work that he's called you to do. And
Yes.
listen, I've definitely been referring some people to 1111 that really need it, right?
Yes.
So I know some people have an issue. I know they're saying, Lord, the doctor is on this here show talking about cannabis, weed, and marijuana. For some people, God is using that to save their pain. It is
Yes.
healing some people. You
Yes.
cannot walk around just in your Genesis to Revelation and not be educated on some other things that is around. So listen, I
Yeah.
am glad that you have come on the show to educate us and get us going.
I
As we wrap up, let me
mhm.
ask you this.
Okay. I was
Right
going to say I have
now,
one more very, very, very important thing to say for the people. If you have anyone suffering with cancer, anybody that is suffering with cancer, let me tell you a few things. One is RSO. Look up RSO, Rick Simpson oil. You can go to any dispensary. If you have your own plants, you can make your own oils with a heavy indica. Number two, take away the sugar. Cancer is a breeding ground. Sugar is a breeding ground for cancer. Number three, forgiveness. Cancer,
come on.
forgiveness is key. Forgiveness, any grudges, any hatred, any bitterness, any unforgiveness from I don't care how many years ago. You got to release it because that is another breeding ground for cancer. So, anyone, any family, soursop is an herb that also kills cancer cells. So, with those four things, RSO, take away the sugar, plant based diet, soursop, and forgiveness, and watch what happens. Come back with Lolita and tell me about the testimony.
I know that's right. Come on. Now you done went to the end of my show, and I had one other thing. Let me ask you this as we wrap up. This is also right now a multi-billion-dollar business. Am I correct?
Yes, yes, yes. And there are so many. If you're interested in the cannabis industry, you don't even have to touch the plant. I myself am in construction. You can do lights, you can do marketing, you can do social media influence, you can do craft grow, you can just consult, you can educate. There's so many different ancillary ways of making money in this industry without even touching the plant. But if you want to touch the plant, you can do it to apply for your licenses. However, social equity is that's the new thing now, social equity, and trying to make sure us black and brown people are into the industry. Well, guess what, it's always, as long as they're MSOs and as long as they are in control, there's always going to be an invisible boundary, honey, for us. So you got to create your own lane. Just start creating your own lane and make sure that you're not doing anything illegal, but create your own lane.
Well,
Create
let
your
me get
own
to
lane.
creating. We need a consultation. I need to create a concept. And I have someone that is in ministry, and I have to say this as we wrap up. And they have an issue that someone is in ministry and they're dating someone who owns a dispensary.
Hmm.
Stop the foolishness.
Yes, yes, it
It's a
brings healing.
multi-billion-dollar business. If
Multi-billion.
someone choose to get into that and make money, are you
Mm-hmm.
telling me that they're going to hell because the business they chose was dispensary? You
Mm-hmm.
chose t-shirt, you chose consulting, they chose dispensary.
God
Hello.
gave us authority over every green
Come on.
plant that produces seed. As a matter of fact, if anything, you want them in the cannabis and dispensaries instead of in pharmacology, where big pharma is killing organs, killing
Come
people,
on. And
opiates,
ooh,
methadone, heroin, fentanyl. Now you got everybody on this fentanyl. Well, guess what? They Percocets, Xanax. These are all these things that's killing our kids right now in these streets.
Yep.
These
Yep.
Percocets, Xanax, Xanny bars. Those
Yep.
things are killing livers and kidneys, which you don't know, you don't think, but it is. So if anything, you want to look at CBD, you want to get some medical recommendations for cannabis. They can't. It's always going to be a black market because guess what? We built this industry.
That's true.
Honestly,
That's
it's
true.
always going to be a black
That's
market.
true.
However, you want to do things the right way, and the right way is getting your medical recommendation cards and grow your own plant. And if you can't grow your own plant, guess what? We will provide a place where with an address for you, so you can grow your own plant. And that's another boundary
Stream
that the
of income.
government creates. They give you
Yeah.
a medical recommendation card, but yet if you're on Section 8, you can't grow in your place because it's federally illegal there.
Come
So
on.
you
That,
have to
ooh,
be able to
don't get me
have a
started.
place. You have to be able to have a place. If you got this
Yeah.
diagnosis, you got your card. Now what? Come talk to us and let us help you to provide a place where we can help you to grow your own plants. You can see your plants every day. You can nurture your plants, sing to
Right.
your plants, and let that plant work for you.
Very good. Listen, I have enjoyed you. I am thoroughly educated. I am definitely glad to see your face. I hadn't seen you in a minute.
I
But
know.
I'm glad that you have come on and to educate and to
Yes.
share your testimony. Because listen, you done went from behind bars to making big dollar bars, right?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
God, right? Thank
Yes.
God. And you
Yes.
gave God the glory. You didn't say it was anybody else, right? So
Nobody.
listen, follow Tracy, follow her at tracy10k.com. Find her on
Yes.
social media, all those good places. She do consultations. You can find her, you can connect with her. Listen, don't be calling me for her personal cell number and all that type stuff going on now. But listen, get what you need. I'm so
Yes.
glad that you joined us on tonight about a topic that a lot of and we could have went on and on and on and a whole
Have
lot
me
of other
back on.
things.
I will come back any day, Lolita. You know I
No, they're
love me
gonna go to
money.
your site. They're gonna come
Yes.
find you, and they're gonna pay
Yes.
you to come do a workshop at their facility. That's what they're gonna
Yes.
do. But no,
Okay.
I will. I will definitely have you back. We can definitely continue the topic soon. But
Mm-hmm.
thank you so much as
No,
we
thank
end tonight.
you.
Listen, guys, I am wrapping up my third season of Lolita's Corner next week.
Oh, okay.
Next week, it started off last year as a business project,
Yes.
and this is the wrapping up my third season. I will
Wow.
definitely take a break until the fall, and I am screwing up some things. But I will tell you a little secret. I am definitely going to do a 5 show relationship series with Sir Ricardo Wadi. So we are coming back, and we're gonna talk relationship, dating, and
Yes.
marriage. Yes, yes. People are asking us for that. So we are going to do that. But Lolita's Corner will definitely be back for its season in fall of 2022. Next week is
Yay.
my last week, and we're going to talk money, currency, Bitcoin, all that damn money to be made out
Mm,
there.
yes.
Right?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yes. Before we go, let us know one last thing you'd like to say to the people.
I just want to encourage you all again to whatever it is that God has placed on the inside of you. Always ask Him for wisdom, seek Him first, put people over the profit. The money's gonna come. Put put God first, people second, and guess what? He gonna bless you just because you blessing the people. Don't
That's
put money first. Don't chase the bag. Let the bag flow. Let the current, it's currency. It's meant to do this. So it's meant to give. So he gives seed to the sower. So as long as you're sowing, as long as you're keeping him first, you gonna make it. You gonna get it. It's a law, and his word does not return void. So
come
that's
on.
what I have to say.
That's what she have to say. The lovely Tracy Quinn. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You guys, it's always a pleasure to serve you through the podcast. I look forward to seeing you all next week for the last episode of season 3. Have a great evening. See you next week.
See you. My forehead look big, don't it?